Tonight, discover the most extravagant wedding in European history. A city where the laws of reality seem suspended. For 9 straight days, the public fountains don't run with water. They run with wine, red and white, free to all. Carved stone arches loose continuous streams of honeyed spiced wine. The streets shine, sticky and sweet, as Bruges becomes an open bar that never closes. Then the doors of a great hall part and a mechanical whale, nearly 60 feet long, eyes of polished mirrors, wings that clatter like sails, rolls in. Before the breathless crowd, its massive jaws creak open. More than 40 performers spill out, sirens singing from its throat, 12 sea knights whirling in intricate dances, all orchestrated by 2 hidden giants working the gears within. It is the size of a warship, and just as impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, fashion reaches absurd heights. Noble women wear needle-tall hennins, some said to rise nearly 4 feet, so lofty that, according to rumor, doorways are raised simply to let them pass. At table, capons arrive sheathed in gold leaf and decked with real jewels. Trained monkeys scamper along the trestles, staging a mock theft of a merchant, only to scatter very real gifts into the laps of astonished ladies. Strings of pearls, embroidered purses, little silver charms. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't fantasy. This was Bruges in the summer of 1468, the wedding of Margaret of York and Charles the Bold, when the Duchy of Burgundy burned at its brightest. Chroniclers called it the most extravagant spectacle of the age, an engineering wonder, a theatre of etiquette, a celebration so costly some courtiers never recovered, and so influential its traditions echo more than 5 centuries later. Tonight, we walk the damp cobblestones, breathe the candle smoke and rain, and drift into the heart of a feast that defied imagination. But before the trumpets sound, before the gold and the marvels, let's prepare for rest and leave a quiet like and subscribe. Find a quiet place where you can be comfortable, supported and undisturbed. Close your eyes, softly. Feel the weight of your body settling into the surface beneath you. Let's begin. It is the year of our Lord, 1468. Let's meet the bride and groom, the center of this whirlwind. She is a princess from a land of green hills and grey seas, an island nation just across the water. Her name is Margaret of York. She is 22 years old, the sister of one English king, Edward IV, and the future sister of another, the controversial Richard III. She has grown up in the shadow of a brutal civil war, a dynastic struggle they call the Wars of the Roses. She is no stranger to politics, to shifting alliances, to the precarious nature of power. She is not considered a great beauty, not in the delicate, doll-like way that is often praised. But she is striking. Margaret was freakishly tall for the era. At nearly 6 feet, she towered over most men. She has fair skin, grey eyes, and a quiet, intelligent gaze. Those who know her speak of her sharp mind, her deep piety, and a wry sense of humour that can catch you off guard. She is a woman of substance, a keen observer of the world. She is a great lover of books, a patron of artists and writers. Her unusual height, intelligence, and later political manoeuvring would eventually lead to her nickname, Diabolical Duchess. People thought Margaret was a witch. She would be blamed for various supernatural incidents. Her personal motto, which she has chosen for herself, is Bien en avienne. May good come of it. It is a phrase full of cautious optimism, the words of someone who knows that life can turn in an instant. And the groom, he is Charles, the new Duke of Burgundy. He is known as Charles le Téméraire, a nickname that can mean the bold, but can also mean the rash. He is 34 years old, a man crackling with restless energy. He has inherited from his father, the great Philip the Good, one of the richest and most powerful domains in Europe. It is a sprawling patchwork territory, stretching from the North Sea down into what is now eastern France. Charles is not content to be a mere duke. He dreams of something more. He dreams of forging his scattered lands into a new, unified kingdom, a great middle kingdom that could stand as an equal to France on one side and the Holy Roman Empire on the other. He is a brilliant and ruthless military commander, a man of fierce ambition and little patience. He is less of a diplomat than his father was. He prefers the clear, sharp logic of the battlefield. He is also notably short. His motto is the perfect counterpoint to Margaret's. It is Je l'ai en prince. I have undertaken it. A statement of bold, unshakable intent. This marriage is more than a union of two people. It is a grand political statement. It is an alliance between England and Burgundy, aimed squarely at their mutual rival, the clever and cunning King Louis XI of France, a man they call the universal spider for the intricate webs he weaves. Louis has done everything in his power to prevent this match, offering other suitors, threatening trade, trying to block the necessary papal dispensation, but he has failed. And despite the splendor Charles is unleashing, the alliance is financially one-sided. Margaret brought zero money. Despite a promised dowry of 200,000 crowns, her brother Edward IV only ever paid half, and that took years. But Charles desires the political strength of the English alliance more than the coin. And so, in the early summer of 1468, Margaret of York says goodbye to her home. On the 18th of June, she rides out of London, a great cavalcade of English nobles accompanying her to the coast. She is leaving her country, her family, her old life, forever. On the 23rd of June, her fleet sets sail. The ships are decorated with her banners, the white rose of the House of York. The crossing is smooth. King Louis's ships, ordered to intercept her, never appear. On the evening of the 25th, her convoy arrives safely at the port of Sluys, the gateway to Bruges. Here, in this bustling port town, she will wait for 7 days before the wedding. It is a period of transition, a quiet pause between two worlds, and it is here that she has her first crucial encounters. She meets the Dowager Duchess, Isabella of Portugal, her future mother-in-law. Isabella is an old woman now, but her mind is as sharp as ever. She is a formidable matriarch, a granddaughter of the English John of Gaunt, and she has been one of the key architects of this marriage, a firm believer in the Anglo-Burgundian alliance. In this meeting of two intelligent, politically minded women, a bond of respect and affection is formed that will prove vital in the years to come. Margaret also meets her future stepdaughter, Mary. She is a bright, charming girl of 11, Charles's only child and his heir. Margaret, who will have no children of her own, will come to love Mary as a daughter, guiding and protecting her. And then she meets Charles. He does not wait for ceremony. One evening, after supper, he slips away from his own residence in Bruges and rides to Sluys, accompanied by only a few trusted knights. It is a secret visit, a romantic gesture. He finds Margaret in her chambers, attended by her English ladies. The meeting of the very tall bride and the very short groom was a source of amusement for the chroniclers. Their first kiss required her to bend down dramatically while he stretched up on his toes. They found this hilarious a moment of human comedy amidst the high politics. There, in the quiet of the night, a bishop is summoned, and Charles and Margaret are formally betrothed, pledging their troth to one another. He has come to find what he desired, and he will not leave without securing it. It is a moment of private connection before the overwhelming public spectacle begins. For the next few days, Charles returns to Bruges to oversee the final preparations, sleeping soundly during the day, as if, one chronicler notes, he were preparing to stand watch all night. The city is being transformed, readied for a celebration the likes of which Europe has never seen. And Margaret waits in Sluys on the threshold of her new life. The air is thick with anticipation. The quiet is about to be broken. The greatest party of the 15th century is about to begin. The day is Sunday, the 3rd of July. The wedding itself happens not with a grand flourish, but in a moment of surprising intimacy. Very early in the morning, between 5 and 7 o'clock, in the private house of a local official in the small town of Dam, just outside Bruges, Margaret and Charles are married. There is no great crowd, no vast cathedral. It is a quiet, solemn ceremony, a simple exchange of vows before a small group of witnesses, a moment of stillness before the storm of celebration. 2 hours later, the spectacle begins. Margaret begins her joyous entry into Bruges. The city tilts slightly, as if to see better. And then the weather turns. The sky, which had been a sheet of pale linen, darkens. It has started to rain. Not a soft summer shower, but a torrential downpour. The procession comes like a tide. First, the hum of people moving in agreement. Then, a gleam of metal that is not a mirror, but acts like one. Margaret travels not on horseback, but in a magnificent golden litter, a covered carriage drawn by pure white horses. She is dressed in white cloth of gold, shimmering even in the gloom. On her head, she wears a coronet sparkling with jewels, silver gilt with pearls, rubies, and sapphires set in white roses of York. This very crown, Margaret's crown, is still around. You can see her actual wedding coronet today in Aachen Cathedral, a tangible piece of history. The rain hammers down on the golden litter. It drums on the cobblestones and turns the streets into slick, muddy rivers. The English chronicler present said it rained so hard he literally couldn't write, the ink washing away from the page. But Margaret refuses to close the curtains of her litter. Everyone got drenched, but kept partying. Drenched, she keeps waving at the crowds that line the road, her white dress soaked, the jewels catching the grey light. She is a vision of royal grace, determined to be seen. Her procession is a river of colour and sound, muted by the rain. 1,000 horses, bishops in their fine robes, nobles from England and Burgundy, knights of Charles's prestigious Order of the Golden Fleece. The air rings with the sound of trumpets and clarions, a bright, brassy announcement of her arrival, cutting through the sound of the downpour. As she passes through the city gates, Bruges reveals its transformed self. The tapestries hanging from the houses are soaked, their colours deepening and running slightly. The streets are strewn with flowers and green branches, now plastered to the stones. Artificial trees have been erected, hung with the coats of arms of Burgundy and York, the golden fire steels and the white rose. Everywhere the couple's mottos are displayed. Her hopeful prayer, may good come of it. His bold declaration, I have undertaken it. And for the ordinary people of Bruges, huddled under eaves and awnings, there is a gift of astonishing generosity, a miracle in the rain. The wine fountains ran for 9 days straight. The city's public fountains, which normally flow with water, are flowing with wine. And not just simple spigots. This is a spectacle of engineering and excess. Stone archers shot continuous streams of red and white wine from their bows. The wine arcs through the rain, splashing into the basins below. Carved pelicans dispensed honeyed hippocras, a sweet, spiced wine, from their breasts. The city has essentially turned into an open bar that never closed. People rush forward, despite the rain, holding cups, jugs, even their hands under the streams of wine. The smell of the wine mixes with the smell of the rain, a sweet, heady aroma. We move forward, and the square opens wider. A fountain is tested, a cloth-wrapped cask is hoisted, and the tap is eased, and a slender red line pours into a wooden bowl and then into the basin. Someone laughs, a soft, grateful kind of laugh, and then shushes their own joy, as if not to startle it. A woman who teaches lace offers a sip to the statue of a saint carved into the corner of a house, and then takes one herself. The wine sits warm in your throat like a tiny hearth. The procession winds its way through the narrow streets, which have been turned into a series of open-air theatres. On temporary stages, actors perform tableaux vivants, living pictures from history and mythology. They stand shivering in the rain, holding their poses. Here is Adam and Eve. There is Cleopatra marrying King Alexander. They are called mysteries, mysteries, and they are designed to delight and instruct the new Duchess. Finally, she arrives at the ducal palace. The rain begins to slow, easing into a soft drizzle. The city sighs, relaxes. Here, the Dowager Duchess Isabella is waiting to formally receive her new daughter-in-law. She helps Margaret from her litter and escorts her by the hand to her chambers. For a moment, we will leave the new Duchess to her rest and turn our attention to the great hall where the first of many banquets is being prepared. The Burgundian court was already famous throughout Europe for its opulence. But what is about to unfold over the next 10 days will set a new standard for extravagance. It is a carefully choreographed performance of power, wealth, and artistic ingenuity, designed to leave every guest breathless. They didn't just use the existing palace. The scale of the celebration demanded something more. They built an entire temporary palace, a wooden banquet hall 140 feet long and 70 feet wide with glass windows, gilded shutters, and upper galleries was constructed just for the feast, then torn down. It is a marvel of carpentry. It has real glass windows, an incredible luxury, and upper galleries for musicians and spectators. It is a building designed to exist for only a moment of splendor. Inside, the hall is vast. The air is warm, heated by the press of hundreds of bodies and the light of thousands of beeswax candles. The candlelight reflects off the gilded surfaces, creating a shimmering, flickering light that makes the entire room feel alive. The walls are hung with exquisite tapestries, woven with threads of gold and silver, depicting scenes of history and legend. The sheer value of these hangings is astronomical. Long tables are set for the guests, draped in fine white linen. In the center of the hall stands the buffet, a multi-tiered structure laden with gold and silver plate, a glittering mountain of ducal treasure. The scale of the expense is staggering. Charles spent more on clothes than a castle. He spent 40,000 francs just on fabric for his household's outfits. The goldsmiths and tinsmiths of Bruges worked for months to produce the thousands of silver and pewter dishes required. The pressure to impress, to display wealth and power, is so intense that it had real consequences. The party bankrupted multiple nobles. Several attendees had to pawn their estates to pay for appropriate clothing and gifts for the Duke and Duchess. The guests arrive, and the sight is overwhelming. The height of fashion was insane, almost architectural. The men wear rich velvets and furs, their sleeves slashed to reveal contrasting colors, their shoes pointed and elongated. But it is the women who dominate the space. They wore hennin headdresses, those tall, conical hats that stretch up towards the high rafters. Some are up to 45 inches tall, almost 4 feet. The taller your cone hat, the higher your social rank. They are draped with fine, transparent veils that float around them like mist. Doorways had to be specially modified, heightened so these ladies could pass through without stooping. They move with a slow, graceful glide, careful not to unbalance their towering headwear. The visual effect is that of a forest of silk and velvet cones moving through the candlelight. Even amidst this splendor, the realities of the era remained. The air in the hall is thick with the smell of expensive perfume, used to mask the scent of unwashed bodies. And despite the finery, hygiene was different. Nude sleeping was the norm. Even at this fancy event, noble guests slept naked or in just linen undergarments, multiple people per bed. Margaret herself would have shared her vast ceremonial bed with several high-ranking ladies. The banquet begins. Evening steps into the hall, wearing gold and carrying a towel over its arm. The tables fill, a blessing whispers, and the room hushes the way a field hushes when wind arrives. Bread is broken, and the sound is like many small doors opening. The music swells. The wedding music was written by a superstar. Antoine Benoit, the Jay-Z of 15th century music, composed special pieces. His motet in hydraulis is still performed today. The air fills with complex, soaring harmonies. Course after course is brought forth, a parade of culinary wonders. The food is not just meant to be eaten, but to be admired. It is sculpture, theatre, a display of wealth. There are roasted swans and peacocks, painstakingly cooked and then redressed in their own feathers to look as if they were still alive. The feast featured gilded peacocks wearing jewelry, 15 peacocks and 16 swans, all covered in gold leaf and wearing collars of the Golden Fleece Order with heraldic badges. They are gilded and gleaming, eerie and beautiful. They are presented on platters of silver, their golden feathers catching the light. There are pies and pastries of every description, fish from the sea and game from the forests, all seasoned with the rare and costly spices that flowed into Bruges from the east: cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, saffron. The air is rich with the scent of roasted meat and exotic spices. Meat arrives, turning the air warm and persuasive. A boar with skin lacquered into a mirror. Birds layered with herbs, their legs trussed in little paper ruffs that look like skirts for wrists. Fish smooth as river stones. Bowls of peas that taste like the colour green. But the food, as magnificent as it is not the main event. The true marvel of a Burgundian feast was the entremet. These were the theatrical spectacles presented between the courses. They were not just desserts. They were elaborate, multimedia works of art, designed to astonish and entertain. They blurred the line between food, sculpture, and theatre, and the ones created for this wedding were legendary. Imagine you are a guest at this feast. You are seated at one of the long tables. The bride and the duke share a look that is not for us, and yet we are gentled by seeing it. Between courses, voices play with each other like friendly dogs. As one course is cleared away, a hush falls over the hall. The music changes, adopting a tone of mystery and anticipation. And then the great doors at the end of the hall swing open. The first entremet arrives. Dromedaries delivered oranges. A person dressed as a wild man, covered in furs and carrying a club, rides a fake camel, a dromedary, through the banquet hall distributing exotic citrus fruits, which were insanely expensive. It is draped in silk, its eyes wide and painted. They guide the animal around the tables. The sharp, sweet scent of the oranges cuts through the heavy air of the hall. A moment of freshness amidst the excess. The camel disappears, and the conversation resumes, buzzing with admiration for the Duke's ingenuity. The next course is served and cleared. The trumpets sound again. This time, it is the golden lion. A dwarf rode a golden lion. This is an automaton, a marvel of medieval engineering. A cunningly made mechanical lion, gilded and gleaming, walks into the room seemingly under its own power. It moves its head, its eyes flash, its mouth opens and closes, and on its back rides Madame de Beaugrand, the Duke's daughter's dwarf. She is a tiny woman, dressed in magnificent clothes. The lion carries her slowly, majestically, to the high table. The lion stops. Madame de Beaugrand dismounts and sings a song for Margaret, her voice surprisingly clear and strong in the vast hall. She presents the new Duchess with a daisy, a Marguerite in French, a clever pun on her name, a moment of delicate charm amidst the grandeur. The entremets could also be bizarre, even slightly menacing. During another banquet, the entertainment takes a strange turn. Trained monkeys robbed guests for entertainment. Mechanical monkeys appear, their movements jerky and unpredictable. They are dressed in fine clothes, mimicking the courtiers. They enact a scene where they steal from a fake sleeping merchant who has set up a stall in the center of the hall. The guests watch, amused by the antics. But then the monkeys turn their attention to the guests themselves. They move through the hall, and instead of just pretending, they begin to distribute the stolen goods. Actual jewelry, expensive purses, and personalized gifts are handed out to the ladies present. It is a moment of delightful confusion, a blurring of the lines between performance and reality. The ladies examine their new treasures, glittering in the candlelight. The scale of the entremets grows with each passing day. The Duke is determined to outdo himself. One evening, a structure of astonishing size is wheeled into the hall, a 46-foot tower full of dancing animals. It is over 4 stories tall, a massive structure of wood and painted canvas representing a fortified town. It reaches almost to the rafters of the temporary hall, and inside this mechanical tower, animals dance. Bears, wolves, and monkeys. Not real ones, but automatons, or perhaps men dressed in elaborate costumes, move inside the tower, visible through the windows. They are operated by hidden mechanisms, gears and levers hidden within the structure. The effect is mesmerizing. A towering edifice filled with dancing beasts, a surreal and unforgettable sight. In the kitchens, the work to create these wonders is intense. Your work is in a kitchen that belongs to a household hired for the great day. The cook keeps his voice low as a pot of pears simmers. Sugar waits in a cloth sack like a secret. Almonds lie in a wooden bowl, still tasting of the tree. Cinnamon hums inside a little jar. You grind almonds and sugar with a pestle heavier than it looks. It is good work. It makes your forearms speak. The paste warms under your hands. With a knife, you shape leaves that will decorate a tower. A girl beside you cuts thin strips of candied orange peel and arranges them into a pattern that explains more about the sun than some sermons. You lick a fingertip, and the cook pretends to frown, but his mouth smiles. A tower of sugar rises slowly, piece by delicate piece, white as first snow. Two men lift a frame onto the long table and bolt it together while speaking not a word, because bolts and gravity demand that kind of attention. The tower climbs. It climbs until you begin to understand what the number 40 feels like when it is not counting years, but counting handbreadths of wonder. But the most incredible display, the one that would be talked about for decades, was the whale. The mechanical whale contained 40+ people. The doors open, and a creature of the deep enters the hall. It is 60 feet long. It is so large that it dominates the space, its presence overwhelming. On a low cart, boys unload a wooden whale. Its sides are painted the dark of deep water, and its eyes are the good kind, the kind that make you feel seen and forgiven. Men fit its halves together and tug on hidden cords to make the mouth lift and close like a door. You run your fingers over a seam and feel the work in it, the hundreds of small decisions it took to make a whale out of a plan and a wish. And then the whale comes, rolling with a gravity that makes the floorboards assume their best behavior. Children forget to breathe. Adults remember they were children. This 60-foot beast had mirror eyes, moving wings. It is operated from the inside by two men, described as giants, using staffs to propel it forward. As it moves through the hall, its fins flap, and it spouts water from its blowhole, a fine mist that rains down on the astonished guests. The whale stops in the center of the hall. The whale opens its mouth, and light tumbles out, warm and patient, and from within, a spectacle emerges, sirens singing from its throat. Then the whale disgorges its cargo. 12 sea knights emerge from the belly of the beast. They perform intricate Moorish dances, their movements sharp and precise, a display of martial artistry. It was a moment of pure, unbelievable magic, a demonstration of a power so immense that it could bend reality itself. The Duke of Burgundy was not just a ruler, he was a master of illusions, a creator of marvels. And finally, for dessert, they served sugar sculptures you could eat. Entire castles, ships, and mythical beasts made from sugar-decorated tables. These were subtleties, edible sculptures, intricate and beautiful. They were white as first snow, shimmering in the candlelight. Guests would break pieces off for dessert, destroying the beautiful creations in a final act of conspicuous consumption. For 10 days, the city of Bruges lived inside this dream. Each day brought a new banquet, new entremets, new wonders. The wine flowed from the fountains, the music played, and the ordinary world of work and worry seemed to fade away. It was a spectacle of overwhelming, almost dizzying luxury, a performance designed not just for the guests in the hall, but for the whole of Europe. The message was clear. This was the court of Burgundy, and there was no other place on earth quite like it. As the days of feasting and wonder unfolded, the celebration moved from the enclosed splendor of the palace halls out into the open air of the city's heart. The grand finale of the wedding festivities was a tournament, but this was no ordinary joust. It was a pas d'armes, a passage of arms, a form of chivalric theatre that was the height of aristocratic fashion. It was called the Tournament of the Golden Tree. In the centre of the market, the great market square of Bruges, a beautiful artificial tree was erected. Its trunk and branches were gilded, shimmering in the summer light. This was the symbolic centerpiece of the contest. There is talk of a procession with a golden tree. The branches are hung with little coins and pieces of glass. When it passes, children will reach up and be allowed to touch a leaf. This is the kind of memory that gives the city something to hold in winter. You imagine the tree swaying and the coins chiming, and you understand in your bones why people make such things. It is not a matter of gold. It is a matter of weight and light, and the agreement that a symbol can steady the floor under your feet. The stands around the square were draped in rich tapestries for the noble ladies and important guests, including, of course, the new Duchess Margaret. The entire court, its visitors, and the citizens of Bruges gathered to watch. This was a performance with a story, a script, and a cast of characters. At the base of the golden tree stood 3 figures: a dwarf holding an hourglass to mark the time, a giant, a man of imposing stature dressed in exotic costume, and a herald whose job it was to announce the proceedings. The hero of this drama, the knight who would defend the golden tree against all challengers, was a man named Antoine, known as the Great Bastard of Burgundy. He was Charles the Bold's illegitimate half-brother, a renowned warrior and a man of great charm and skill. For the tournament, he assumed a new identity: the Knight of the Golden Tree. The rules of the contest, the chapters of arms, had been circulated in advance. One by one, noble challengers would come forward to fight the Knight of the Golden Tree. Over the course of the tournament, 26 noblemen would test their skill against Antoine. The first was a great lord named Adolphe of Cleves. A herald would announce his arrival. He would ride into the square, his armor polished to a mirror shine, his horse draped in his colors. He would issue his formal challenge, and the Knight of the Golden Tree would accept. At the list field, men test their tack. A boy adjusts a strap, and the strap reminds him, with a nip, to be humble. He kisses his fingers and touches the horse's shoulder in apology. You taste the air, and it tastes like leather and breakfast smoke and hope. The banners lift and settle, as if remembering waves from a story told by a sailor. The tournament begins the way bread begins, quietly, with people looking at one another and asking if now is the time. The answer is yes, but in a voice that respects mourning. Hooves thud in a rhythm generous enough to carry even the nervous. We allow the topic of violence to walk by, at a distance, hat in hand. The combats were real. The lances could splinter, and a man could be unhorsed. The risk of injury was ever present. It was a demonstration of grace, skill, and courage. It was a performance of the chivalric ideal, a way for these men to win honor and reputation before the eyes of the court, and especially before the eyes of the ladies. It was a ritual that reinforced the bonds of their elite, international brotherhood of knights. But this was an age where knights broke bones for entertainment. Lances chuckle against shields. Men shout, but with the good kind of shouting, the kind that helps other men be braver than they are without tearing anything down. For hours, the square would ring with the clash of steel, the thundering of hooves, and the cheers of the crowd. But the mood shifts. The competition becomes too fierce, the desire to win overriding the chivalric ideals. The Count of La Roche takes the field. He charges, his lance lowered. The impact is tremendous. A sharp crack echoes across the square. The Count is unhorsed, falling heavily to the ground. He does not get up. The Count of La Roche shattered his leg so badly during the tournament that he was still in treatment 6 months later. The crowd gasps, a collective intake of breath. The violence escalates. The jousts become more brutal, the impacts heavier. The festive atmosphere turns tense. From the stands, Margaret watches, her face pale. The bloodshed is becoming too much. Margaret had to wave her handkerchief frantically to stop the violence. The heralds blow their trumpets, calling a halt to the contest. In the square, a physician leans over a young man whose enthusiasm has exceeded his grip. A wrist is bound with linen steeped in vinegar. The young man assures the evening that he will be fine by sunrise. The physician, who is a poet of cloth and patience, ties a bandage and smiles as if invited to a private joke with the tendon under his fingers. He sends a boy to fetch an orange and instructs him to peel it for the patient, because there is medicine in sweetness, and he does not intend to overlook any tool the day provides. The boy returns with the orange and a look of grave importance. He peels carefully, making one long coil of skin that he hangs over the edge of a chair to dry. The physician approves. He is pleased by spirals. It was a magnificent, living tapestry of martial prowess and courtly romance, the perfect, glittering, and slightly brutal climax to a week of wonders. And then, after 10 days, it was over. On Tuesday, the 12th of July, a final grand banquet was held. The entremets were as marvellous as ever, one last display of ducal magnificence. Then the guests began to depart. The great lords and their retinues packed up their fine clothes and jewels and began the long journeys home, their minds filled with stories of what they had seen. The city of Bruges slowly returned to itself. The dream was over. The dismantling begins. The tapestries, stained by the rain and the excesses of the celebration, are taken down from the houses. The grey stone facades emerge once again. The stages for the living pictures were dismantled, the wood stacked neatly to be reused. The temporary palace, the magnificent wooden banquet hall with its glass windows and gilded shutters, is taken apart piece by piece. The wonder is reduced to a pile of timber. The fountains once again flowed with water instead of wine. The stone arches and the pelicans are silent. Their brief moment of magic ended. The streets are quiet now. The crowds have dispersed. Outside, flags rest against their poles and look like tired birds. The square is a little bruised from joy. Sweeps push sand into baskets, clearing the debris of the feast. A man with a damp cloth cleans a smear of sugared almond from a step, then licks his thumb and nods. We turn back toward kitchens, because kitchens are where life sets its rhythm. Pots are scrubbed with sand and dried with linen. Bones that were roasted yesterday simmer now to make tomorrow helpful. A woman lifts a lid and steam kisses her face. She smiles, and it counts as a prayer. A boy sneaks a taste and receives a gentle swat and a slice of carrot and a lesson in timing. You return to the hall to help undo the feast in an orderly fashion. The great tower is now a hill. The whale has become a tail. The fountain resumes its ordinary work of being a basin, carved by a man who never knew it would one day carry wine. Plates are stacked, their wooden faces shining with oil and use. You peel wax that has slipped from candles and coil it into a new life in a little pot for tomorrow. The bells of the belfry, which had rung for celebration, now tolled the familiar hours of the working day. The merchants returned to their counting houses, the craftsmen to their workshops. Life, with its familiar textures of toil and prayer, cold mornings and simple meals, resumed its steady, comforting rhythm. The city breathes, but the memory of those 10 days did not fade. It became a legend, a story the people of Bruges would tell their children and their children's children. The story of the marriage of the century, of the English princess and the bold duke. The story of wine fountains and mechanical whales, and a beautiful golden tree that once stood in the heart of their city. Such spectacles are, by their nature, fleeting. The magnificent food was eaten, the wine was drunk, the intricate entremets were dismantled, the golden litter was put away. The people, too, are fleeting. Charles the Bold, the rash and ambitious Duke, would be dead in battle less than a decade later, his dream of a kingdom dying with him on the snowy fields of Nancy. Margaret of York would outlive him, and her beloved stepdaughter Mary. She became the diabolical Duchess, a wise and respected stateswoman, a formidable political player, the steady hand that helped hold Burgundy together in the turbulent years that followed. Their story, like all stories, came to an end. And yet, some things endure. We look gently at mortality because days like this teach you how to look. There is a small chapel where candles are lit for no one in particular and for everyone in general. You step inside. The wax smell is a lullaby. The floor remembers every foot that has learned to shuffle quietly here. On a side table, a book lies open to a page where an O begins with a vine that refuses to be plain. Someone before you has left a coin. Someone after you will leave a prayer. You say the kind of words that are more like breathing than speaking. You think of those who are not here. You think of those who are. You place both thoughts on the same plate and find they balance better than you expected. The city of Bruges itself endures, its medieval heart still beautifully preserved. You can walk the same cobblestone streets today, cross the same arched bridges over the canals, and stand in the same market square where the golden tree once stood. The stone and the water remember. And the memory of the wedding endures in a special way. The wedding started a 550-year tradition. Bruges still recreates this wedding every 5 years, with 1,500 costumed participants. The pageant of the golden tree. The next one is in 2029. A city, like a person, chooses what it remembers. And Bruges has chosen to remember this. A moment of unparalleled splendor, a fairy tale of chivalry and celebration. A story of a time when their city was the glittering center of the world. And so, the echo of those trumpets from 1468 can still be heard faintly across the centuries. A whisper of a party so grand it became a part of the city's soul. A gentle reminder that even the most fleeting moments of joy can leave a legacy of beauty that lasts forever. Now, it is time to let that story fade. The day is done. The celebration is over. Night breathes deeper. In rooms across the city, people unlace garments that lace the world to them all day and feel lighter. The bride is somewhere, and you hope she is laughing softly with someone who makes the inside of her wrist relax. The Duke is somewhere, and you hope he has put his hand on his chest and felt the heart in there like a good drummer. The rest of us are here, and we have done enough. You climb the stairs, and the stairs receive your feet, the way old friends receive each other's news. In your room, the bed has remembered your shape all day. You sit, and the straw accepts you without judgment. A room is prepared. The sheets smell of sun and clean wind. Someone has hidden dried lavender in the pillows so that the body will remember to unclench. The bed waits with its best manners on. You wash your face with water that has been allowed to forget the bucket. You wash your hands and watch the water go dull and the basin go satisfied. You blow out the candle and watch the smoke braid itself into the air like a spell that wishes you well. You lie down. The roof keeps the sky out but lets its idea in. The day gathers its limbs and folds itself neatly and places itself on the chair for morning. Let the images of silk and gold dissolve like sugar in water. Let the towering hats and the gilded peacocks drift away like smoke. Let the sounds of the music, the clash of steel, and the cheering crowds soften into silence. There is only the quiet of this room, the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Feel the stillness around you, a deep, comforting quiet. Breathe in slowly, deeply, and breathe out, letting go of the story, letting go of the images. There is nothing left to do, no place you need to be. The city sleeps. The whale is still, it seems cooling. The tower, what is left of it, stands like a stump of snow in a summer story. The fountain is silent and pleased. Out again, and the night has poured more stars into the sky. A musician sits alone on a step and plucks a string just to feel it hum. A guard leans on his spear as if it were a friend and murmurs to it as if the spear will report his kindness to whoever keeps the books. Your breath learns the slow measure again. Someone on the street below tells a joke, and someone beside them inhales a laugh, and then remembers it is night, and stores the laugh for morning. A dog murmurs in its sleep. A little cart goes by, and a wheel squeaks once and then thinks better of it. We move into the part of the story that is mostly breathing. We let the city tuck us in. Your eyes are closed. The bells, far off, practice for morning. The canal holds the moon as if it were a fragile fruit. Somewhere, a woman ties a ribbon around a bundle of letters and slides them into a chest. Somewhere, a boy sleeps with a wooden horse under his arm. Somewhere, a cook smiles in his sleep and stirs an invisible pot. Somewhere, a bride breathes in and out, and the out-breath is longer than the in-breath, which is a good sign. There is nothing left to do, no effort required, just the feeling of heavy comfort, the quiet darkness, the slow, steady rhythm of your breath. You sleep. The city keeps watch. The day's page turns itself gently, and the next page is blank and quiet and ready, drifting deeper now, down into a soft, restorative sleep, quiet and still, safe and warm. Just rest. Rest now. Sleep well.